Hello and welcome to the Motoring News Zone, the show we bring you all the biggest stories in the world of cars right now. This week we ask whether larger cars should pay more for parking spaces as has been mandated in some cities. We cover the biggest EV mistakes to avoid, and we also ask whether electric vehicles or ICE cars are easier to maintain and, more importantly, cheaper to maintain too. Find out that and a whole lot more in today's show. Skip to the timestamp you're most interested in when it comes to that specific story if you're on YouTube. And without further ado, let's dive in. The decision for whether to switch to an electric car from your petrol or diesel powered equivalent isn't an easy one to take. Every single case is different and there's so many different factors to consider when doing so. The cost, the maintenance, your personal preference, where you live, your driving habits, all of this comes into the equation. Now, I've spoken with my good friend Ed Bernardin on a number of occasions about debates like this, and the general running costs of an electric vehicle are lower, but something we didn't actually speak about is what happens if things go wrong. How much does it cost to repair an electric vehicle when something goes wrong, when a component goes wrong? Is it more expensive than a diesel or petrol powered car or a gas powered car for you guys in the States? Well, the answer is actually quite surprising. Even though electric cars on the whole are more expensive than their diesel and petrol powered equivalents when they are new, they actually cost significantly less on the whole to maintain. Now, why is this? Well, it's because EVs powertrains, their electric motors, are a lot simpler than petrol and diesel powered cars. Now, of course, the most expensive electric car will probably cost more to maintain than a very cheap petrol or diesel car, but for the equivalents, for the petrol powered, diesel powered and electric powered equivalents and the hybrids as well, of course, electric cars, EVs on the whole, are actually cheaper to maintain. Gas-powered cars on the whole do have hundreds of components to maintain when it comes to the engines. However, electric cars just have a few different core components: the electric motor, the battery pack and the inverter. Fewer parts means that fewer things can go wrong as well, so the reliability of these overall in general is actually better than traditional gas-powered cars. And you'll never have to deal with things like oil changes, spark plugs, timing belts, an exhaust system. They don't exist on EVs. There's no need for them, so there's no need for them to go wrong at any point either. Another major benefit as well is the brakes. Regenerative braking does actually ease the pressure on your brakes overall over a long period of time compared to traditional cars, which of course use older style brakes, which do wear out a lot more quickly. One downside though in general, especially for things such as Teslas, is that their tyres do wear down quicker. Now, there is a reason for this. It's because it's more to do with the way that people drive Teslas. The instant acceleration, the lack of a torque curve does actually mean that the car's tyres do wear out more quickly. That's not because the tyres aren't very good quality, the exact opposite. Actually, they are very high quality, but they do wear out a lot quicker because of the instant acceleration. But if you are careful with how you drive your EV, this won't be a problem for you. But for most people, with the way they drive their Tesla, they just can't help it but do that instant acceleration at times. They get a bit adventurous. It's only human nature at the end of the day. However, when you do need to replace batteries, they can be very expensive. Normally, batteries cost anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000 to replace on an EV, depending on the model that you've got. Now, of course, that is a lot. You won't need to do it as often. You probably might have to do it every 100,000 miles driven or so. And in that time, a lot of petrol and diesel powered cars, unfortunately, do have a lot of significant issues that could easily total $10,000 in total to actually repair over that time. So even though it's a significant expense at that time, overall, the car will have not had as many problems, so it won't have cost you as much during those, 5-10 years, depends how much you drive really, to get to 100,000 miles. Something else you might have to consider as well is that you may have to upgrade your charging system at home. If you get a specific EV that needs a certain charging point, that will of course cost you. Now, depending again on the manufacturer, that might be included in the cost. You might already have the charger that you need, but it's something that you need to consider. When you get a petrol or diesel powered car, a gas powered car, you just go to the petrol station, the gas station, to actually fill it up. Obviously, it's different. You can, of course, use public chargers to charge your EV, but that will cost you a lot more than doing it at home, and it's also not as convenient. Overall, according to a few recent studies by Consumer Reports, owners typically pay around 50% less on maintenance costs compared to petrol, diesel, and gas-powered cars. Overall, on average, they spend around $600 a year on maintenance, where the fossil fuel-powered equivalents spend around $1.2 grand. And when it comes to the general running cost, this of course can vary. It varies depending on the cost of electricity. That can of course go up and down. And it's the same for diesel and petroleum as well. That can also vary over time as well. So even though it's cheaper right now, in the future, in theory, it might be more expensive to do one or the other. Although with the way things are going, it's more likely that things such as gasoline will go up a lot in price over the next few decades as it becomes harder to extract and rarer throughout the world. So if you discount the initial cost of actually buying an EV, it does cost significantly less to maintain and also run as well. Of course, there will be edge cases with this. You might get an EV that's very expensive and very unreliable. By contrast, you might get a petrol-powered car that would be very reliable and very cheap to maintain. But on the whole, in general, it is cheaper to actually run and maintain an EV for most people in the world. Have you found this is the case, guys? My dad personally, he's got an electric vehicle, and it annoys me how cheap it is for him to fill up, as it were, to actually charge his battery fully. I think he only spends something like, I think it's £100, couple £100 a year here in the UK, whereas I burn through a couple £100 worth of petrol within 2 or 3 months, and that's even if I'm not driving a lot as well. So yeah, in most cases I would say that is the case, but I want to hear what you say in the comments below, guys. Are electric vehicles cheaper to maintain and run than the petrol, the gas, the diesel powered equivalent? I'm using both of those, as this video will probably go out on both sides of the Atlantic, so hopefully you guys understood this. Electric vehicles, EVs, we talk about them a lot here on the channel. They're becoming better, they're becoming more popular, their ranges are getting longer, but some of the problems that people associate with them are still prevalent. But there are some common mistakes that people make when it comes to maintaining their electric vehicles' batteries. Mistakes that can cost you range further down the line, efficiency, and overall security of your car. So let's have a look at some of the biggest and most common mistakes that people make when it comes to their EVs. Because at the end of the day, guys, a lot of this stuff isn't advertised very well, but I'm going to do my best to go through some of the most common mistakes so you can avoid doing them with your EV. Now, the first one is charging to 100% all the time. Now, this goes for batteries in general. If you charge your laptop or your mobile phone or any other kind of device that's got a rechargeable battery to 100% all the time, and worse, leave it plugged in, still charging when it's on 100%, this can actually degrade the life of your battery. You might not notice it at first, it takes a long time to do so, but ideally you should charge your battery in your EV to anywhere between 20 and 80% for daily use. Now, for longer trips, obviously you want to get it to 100% so that you can go as far as you can go, but if you're going to the shops, picking the kids up, going to work, just those general kind of commutes, 20 to 80% will give you several hundred miles of charge in most modern day EVs. So ideally, you want to go for that kind of range. I believe you can also get apps that show what the charging kind of state of your battery is at any one time. So unplug it when it gets to around 80%. That is what I would recommend. Conversely as well, you don't want to let the battery in your EV drop too low. Now, again, if you're going for a long trip, obviously this will probably be a problem at some point. But again, if you are just commuting around school, shops, work, just little trips like that, you should avoid getting your battery too low. How low is too low? Well, if it goes below 10%, the battery chemistry begins to degrade a little bit, just like if you leave it plugged in for too long on the opposite side of things. To avoid this, do charge it when you get to around 20%. Any lower than that, then you're at risk of obviously degrading the battery. Again, it's similar to your other devices that will actually have a rechargeable battery as well. That's why your phone or your laptop doesn't like it when you go below that percentage. It very much reminds you to plug your phone or your laptop in as soon as possible. Rapid charging. Now, of course, rapid charging is very handy if you want to quickly charge your electric vehicle, but doing it too often can actually damage your battery in the long term. High-speed chargers are convenient, but when they are used too often, they will heat up and wear down your electric vehicle battery. They pump a lot of energy quickly, which increases the battery's internal temperature and causes faster wear. Basically, think of it like your tires. If they're running too hot, then of course they will wear out faster. Same for your engine, same for anything else. In an electric vehicle, it also applies to the battery as well. So you can use it every now and again, but using it often will of course make the life of your battery in your EV worse. Exposing your electric vehicle to extreme temperatures. Now, of course, in certain parts of the world, this can't be avoided. Here in the UK, for example, our climate is very temperate. We don't have it too hot in the summer nor too cold in the winter, but in some climates, such as in the United States, Canada, Australia, at times of the year, it can get very, very hot or very, very cold, depending on where you are. And prolonged exposure to extreme temperatures is bad for the life of your battery. Extreme heat speeds up the degradation, while extreme cold reduces the range and efficiency of your battery. Whenever possible, park your EV in a garage or in the shade. But obviously, like I said, if you need to get out and about and it's very, very cold and very, very hot, this is not ideal. However, it's mainly when the car is actually still, because think about how hot it gets on the inside of your car on a sunny day. It can only be about 15 degrees Celsius, around 60 degrees Fahrenheit outside. But if you're getting a lot of strong sun on the inside of your car, it heats up quite a bit. It's a similar sort of story for the batteries as well. While you're driving around, it's not such a problem, but if you can park it in a garage where it's a more temperate climate, that will really help out your overall battery life. And the last one, and this one is actually quite a big safety hazard really, ignoring battery cooling or heating systems. Many modern EVs come with thermal management systems to keep the battery at a safe operating temperature at all times, helping to prevent overheating or freezing on the other side of things. Familiarize yourself with your EV's thermal features and use them as needed. Basically, if you've got a warning light, if you've got something that's flashing in front of your face, don't ignore it. It's there for a reason. You wouldn't ignore a tire that is going down or your engine overheating. It's the same thing for your EV as well. Yes, it will still run, but in the long term, you could do damage and there could potentially be a hazard there overall as well for your overall safety while driving. But yeah, those are some tips and tricks really to help the life of your battery if you're an EV owner. There's no shame in it, guys. We're all new to these things at some time, so there's no shame in admitting you need a bit of help with this, and hopefully these tips and tricks do help you out. Your thoughts in the comments below, guys. What's your best tip when it comes to owning an EV? I know there'll be some people in the comments saying, well, my number one tip is don't own an EV, but if you do, these bits of advice will hopefully help you out. Interesting headline here on the motoringchronicle.com. A 2025 user experience report reveals the need for OEMs to optimize in-car payment services to access untapped revenue. Now, this absolutely screams of microtransactions and stuff like that to me. I'll be honest, anybody who's played video games will know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a big problem right now. Very parasitic towards children, basically, you know, trying to tap into those millions, you know. But let me have a look at what this story is, guys, and I'll give my thoughts on it at the end, because like I said, definitely a unique headline. I wasn't expecting to see this one today on the website, but we got that full article as always. A new first of its kind report by Drive Research focused on the full user experience journey of in-car payment systems shows that these services have become extremely desirable, convenient features for many drivers who will be willing to pay for access to significantly improve their driving experience and brand perception. In 2025, In-Car Payments User Experience Report presented real-world drivers in the US and Germany with two in-car payment systems and tasked them with completing the same exercises on both answering quantitative and qualitative survey and interview questions to gauge their level of interest in-car payment functionality and opinions on the two formats. The first system, A, was an anonymized current in-production OEM system in each region, with the second system being an updated setup created together by Parkopedia and Valtech Mobility, with ease of use improvements across enrollments, notifications, engagement, and payment processes. All American drivers surveyed stated that having an easy-to-use in-car payment system would improve their driving experience, with 100% also highly valuing its functionality in enabling in-car payments for driving-related services. Simple in-car payments were also near universally valued by German participants at 93%. This demonstrated the wide-ranging demand for this functionality when it works as intended. Showing the potential benefit to OEMs from introducing well-executed in-car payments, 97% of participants in both the US and Germany would consider using in-car payments for all vehicle transactions such as parking, EV charging, fueling and tolls if the setup were easy to use. One German participant stated, "System B is definitely simpler, time-saving, self-explanatory, efficient and an everyday helper." The same proportion at 97% stated that in-car payment functionality would improve their driving experience and would value having multiple in-car payment services available through one platform instead of requiring external devices to access. The consistency of the figures show that these drivers have a strong held interest in more sophisticated connected car services, and OEMs that offer seamlessly integrated in-car payments stand to win growing proportion of customers from rival brands that fail to address this increasing demand. So interesting stuff here. I mean, there's a full article. It's a really, really long one. If you guys want to check it out, I don't have time in this video to go through it all. It's not, I mean, this is the thing, right? It's not inherently evil like in-app purchases and in-game purchases are for video games and for phone apps and stuff like that, right? Those have become a real problem in society. I feel like we're cluing on to them now a bit, but it's unfortunately still a big problem for a lot of people. It's not that uncommon for children and other people to, pay for loads of money on these apps or these games with very little in return. It's a scam, simple as that in a lot of cases. Now, in this case, it's interesting because it does hit onto a topic that I've always thought about, when it comes to the software inside cars, the software that actually drives the little display thing that you get and your telemetry in front of you and stuff like that. For the most part, it sucks. I mean, the in-car telemetry, that's okay. That has to be, that's pretty basic, no problems there. But, comparing your in-car sat-nav to like Google Maps, for example, that you get in Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, it's not even a contest. You use that Android Auto or Apple CarPlay every single time, because it's better. Not only is Google Maps better than your in-car sat-nav, for example, but it just looks nicer too. It's way better. If you ever have the choice, I bet 99.9% of people do go with what's on their phone, basically, and mirror it onto their little screen so they can see what's on there. The ease of access for that and the ease of use is way better. So in-car software does suck for the most part. And, I had a similar discussion a while ago with one of my good friends. He was using his dad's TV, like a Samsung cutting-edge smart TV, like top-of-the-shelf brands, right? Massive thing, 4K, OLED, QLED, I don't know, all them acronyms, right? Every single one of them had the lot, right? And he rightfully said, the OS, the operating system on this, it absolutely sucks. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course it does. Nobody buys a television depending on its ease of use. You buy it because it's got the best picture, the best functionality. You don't buy it because it's got good OS. And it's the same with a car. You don't buy a car because its OS is good, its software is good. So they're never going to really improve on that because they don't really have that much of incentive. No one's going to not buy a car because it's not got certain functionality when it comes to, sort of ease of use, I should say, when it comes to the little screen and stuff like that. You buy it because it's got an efficient engine, because it's got climate control, because it's got cruise control, whatever feature you want, right? Because it's a certain size, because it's a certain body style. That's why you buy a certain car. You don't buy it because it's got good software. At least I've never come across anybody who would do that anyway. And if they are saying that, you're really being honest? Are you really being truthful here? I'm not saying you're a liar, but I'm not saying you're a truther either on that one, as Drake and Josh used to say back in the day. So, yeah, your thoughts in the comments below on this, guys. Do you want better in-car purchases? I mean, I understand it from the parking thing, but, in theory that could work and that could be quite handy. But in practice, I don't know, in the real world, I feel like we've still got a ways to go with that. A lot of these machines and stuff are pretty bad, which might make it easier to use from your car, but would you actually trust it? Would you actually trust it? I don't know. The councils out there are a bit dodgy when it comes to stuff like this, but your thoughts in the comments below. In a perfect world, I think it'd work, but sadly, we live in this earthly reality that we're in right now. And if anything sums up motoring in the United Kingdom right now, it's a headline like this. Apparently, more than 1 million cars that have been sold in the UK over the past year are too big to even fit in an average car parking spot in this country, which is just, again, if anything sums up the UK, it's something like that. It really, really does. Now, who is at fault here is a debate we will probably have at the end of this video. But let's just go through this headline and the stats and the findings behind it, because I've spoken about how cars are so big these days, about how car parking spots have become too small because cars have gotten too big for them over the past, 20 years, really, it's properly accelerated. But in the last 10 in particular, it's been getting too much. But let's have a look at this, guys, because I found this article here on The Guardian, which very much does summarise this very well, in my opinion. More than 1 million cars too big to fit in parking spaces are being sold in the UK each year, and numbers are growing, researchers found. A trend for cars bigger than the average urban parking space means new vehicles are outgrowing towns and cities. Researchers at the campaign network Clean Cities found that in 2021 and after, 4.6 million cars have been sold in the UK that are bigger than a typical urban car parking space. Larger cars are more deadly in crashes than smaller ones, as they weigh more and have tall front ends that trap victims beneath them instead of knocking them to the side. They also pump out more toxic gases into the air. Oliver Lord, who's the UK head of Clean Cities, said, "Cars are getting bigger every year, while our streets are not. We need car makers to prioritise normal-sized cars that can be parked more easily and are less dangerous to people walking around. It's only fair if you want to buy a massive SUV that you should expect to pay more for the space that it takes up." Large SUVs, which are even more than 1.8 metres wide or 4.8 metres long, are becoming more popular despite being too big for most parking spaces, causing more potholes and posing more of a danger to the public. In 2024, a record 1.2 million cars were wider than 1.8 metres were sold in the country. Some cities are clamping down on cars that are taking up too much space. Paris has introduced specific charges for SUVs for parking them, which means that drivers paying triple the amount for those driving regular cars. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has indicated his support for such schemes. I'm sure that will go down very well. The Clean Cities campaigners are also calling for more changes on SUVs to reflect the space they take up and the damage to roads and environment they cause. Harriet Edwards, a parent from Sutton, said, "It's not just the added stress of not being able to find somewhere to park, it's the sense that if I'm involved in a collision with one of these giant SUVs, that me and my family are far more likely to be seriously hurt or killed. If you cause more danger, create more potholes and take up more parking space, it's only fair that you pay a little bit more." Green Party leader Pia Jerry Jones said last week that they have launched a cross-party anti-SUV alliance with the House of Lords. She said sales of SUVs have leapt up in the last 2 decades, yet many urban streets and car parking bays are simply too small to accommodate the increasing girth of these vehicles. "I like what Paris has done to discourage their use by charging the largest cars as much as 3 times more to park. In the UK, Bath and Islington councils have introduced similar measures. The government should encourage other councils to replicate these efforts. SUVs pollute and are owned often by wealthier citizens at the expense of those in less wealthy areas. They feel safer to drive but are much less safe for any pedestrians and cyclists that they collide with." Oh boy, that is a loaded article there. We've got a lot of talking points there, but I'll try and briefly go over a few of them. So what they're saying is correct in terms of them causing more damage to roads because they're bigger, they have more weight, therefore they will do more damage to roads. Now, cars in general have got a lot bigger for many reasons I've outlined before. I did a video on it a good while ago. I'll probably link that at the end, I reckon. I will link that at the end of this video if you guys want to check that out if you're on YouTube. If you're on one of the other social medias, dude, go just search it up, basically. You'll find it. The title of it's something like, "Why are cars getting bigger?" or "Why are cars so big these days?" or something like that. I did it last year. I thought we had an interesting discussion on it. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts in general on this as well. Now, cars in general, it's not just SUVs, but cars in general have got a lot bigger. They're a lot heavier. EVs are quite heavy as well. On top of that, that's all going to contribute to more potholes and more damage on the road. Now, SUVs, if they are an ICE car, if they're a petrol or a diesel car rather than an EV, in general, they will pay more when it comes to things like road tax because their emissions are higher, therefore their road tax is more. So they do pay more because of that. They pay more in general because their fuel efficiency is worse, so they'll pay more in petrol and diesel as well. Whether it's right or not, whether they get charged more for parking, now that's an interesting one. I'm not so sure about that myself, to be honest. I mean, the big debate really on this is, in terms of parking spaces, are parking spaces too small now? Is that the problem? Or should they have to adapt basically to what cars are like these days? Because a lot of these spots will have been designed, I don't know, in the 1980s, 1990s or before, when cars in general were a lot smaller. Not for the entirety, there were big cars back then. And I'm talking about in the UK here, for example, because this is a UK story. I mean, for people in America, cars have always been massive. Are they bigger now than what they used to be over in the States? Yeah. But I think the margin is not as great because we've only really had huge cars here in the UK for 20 years or so before. Like, you didn't really see SUVs. They weren't really a thing. We didn't really have what Americans call sedans and things like that. I mean, estate cars were kind of the biggest cars around. And even Jaguars and Mercedes cars from back then, they're not that big, really. Compared to cars now, they're not that big. So should car parking spots be adapted? Should they be made bigger for cars nowadays? Well, you can argue they should be, because this isn't a trend we're going to see change anytime soon. This is only, if anything, we're going to reach a point eventually where cars are so big, they are undrivable in the UK. There are already some cars out there that are borderline on that. And then maybe we'll see cars decrease in size. We're not at that point yet. I think we're going to continue to see cars get bigger for the meantime, for the next 5 or so years, probably at least. Maybe that trend will then reverse. But there's definitely an argument to say now that cars will increase to be, keep increasing, and that you should get the car parking spaces bigger because of that as well. And just to quickly touch on the reasons why cars are bigger, there's a few. From a technical point of view, it's the technology in the cars nowadays. Think about all the tech in cars. You think about all the, the infotainment in there, the TV screens. You didn't used to have that back in the day. You used to have a radio in your car, and that was kind of it. There's more space that's required for this. There's also more space required for additional safety things as well, such as accident prevention, but also things like airbags and just the general safety thing really with those. So cars in general are a lot safer than what they used to be. I do understand the argument on the converse side of things. If you make things heavier, then therefore they will be more destructive. And I understand that, I do, but I think in general cars are a lot safer than what they used to be. They're not perfect by any means. People still unfortunately die and get injured in them, but overall I would say for their size especially, they are a lot safer than what they used to be back in the day. Pretty much every car nowadays in Europe, or at least in the UK, does get like a European 5-star NCAP rating. It's very rare you don't get one like that. And even now, pedestrians and cyclists and other road users, the outside NCAP rating is something that car makers are very much working on very heavily. And the last point when it really comes to the size of cars nowadays is that basically the general perception is that if your car is bigger, it's more luxurious and it's worth more, so therefore they will charge more for it. So there's that kind of thing as well. There's a customer expectation that if you have a big car, it's a nice car. If you have a car that's smaller, it's not really seen as being as much bang for your buck, basically. Not as much car for every pound that you spend on it. So there's a few factors there kind of contributing for this as well. So yeah, I'm not so sure we're going to see any kind of reverse in this in the meantime. And car parking spaces, if they're making new ones, I think they should probably make them a little bigger, to be honest, because even my car, I've got what's called, what's classed as a hatchback. It can barely fit in spots. There's not a lot of room there. If I'm with my son and I get the opportunity to have a family spot, one of the ones that's bigger, I absolutely 100% do it, because in the regular ones, if I'm having to take him in and out of the car seat quite a bit, it's tight. It's like threading the eye of the needle through it, sometimes getting the doors open. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it, guys. We've gone on for quite some time. It's meant to be a 5-minute video, and it'd been a 10-minute video. Hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure there'll be some people agreeing with me and a lot of people disagreeing with me, but hey, have at it. Have your say. I read all the comments. I promise. See you very soon, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe to see much more content like this on the channel. Have a great day. Hope you had a great weekend. See you soon.